Hello and welcome to Plus One Forward. I should probably have the regular startup text, so let me go get it. Welcome to Plus One Forward, the podcast powered by the apocalypse, where we talk about tabletop role-playing games using or inspired by the apocalypse engine. I'm your co-MC, Rach.
And I'm your player today, Rach.
That's right, I'm not the co, I'm the straight-up MC.
You are the MC.
This is our experiment for a fun thing that Rach and I want to do, to share with you not just snippets of AP, but a whole session, a miniseries. And we've brought on two wonderful guests, Greg Gelder, who is a game designer and improv expert and a wonderful player. Greg, thanks for joining us.
Hi, nice to be here.
And then Cody Eastlick, who is a blogger extraordinaire, a movie reviewer, an incredible player in his own right. Cody, thank you for joining us.
Hey, happy to be here. And thank you. Yes, I am a blogger, a big shot blogger.
Big shot. We'll have links. We're gonna have links in the show notes for you guys.
Oh no.
Cross promotion.
Time to scrub the Twitter.
We are playing Apocalypse World Burned Over because we wanted to start off from the source for PBTA games, but we also wanted something a little on the new. So what we are playing is the version of Apocalypse World called Burned Over, and you can purchase this on itch if you're interested in following along. I'm going to do my best as the MC to teach aspects of the game as we play, because this is Greg's first time playing, and I believe Cody and Rach, you guys have some experience, but newish to it.
I've looked at the book, PDF, sort of.
Good. As you know, Rach and I are big Star Wars nerds, and Rach throughout, well, why not take the chocolate and the peanut butter and mix them together to make this Reese's Cup of Wonder. We are playing in the dark times for Star Wars. So for people who are like, oh my god, I'm already lost, trust me, I will hold your hand as we play through this Star Wars fanfic of our own. It's not going to get too deep into canon, I promise. The Dark Times is the time between Revenge of the Sith and New Hope. So it is the rise of the Empire. The Empire is heavily under control. And we are playing on Tatooine, because all Star Wars things happen on Tatooine. It's so far into the universe where nothing happens except everything happens. Plus, when I think of Apocalypse World, I think of areas where the population is not dense, where the environment is difficult to navigate and punishing. And if that ain't Tatooine. Now sure, there are other selections, trust me, I know. But why not? So this is the Dark Times, the Empire is under control, Jabba the Hutt is not dead yet, and we are playing. Which means, if you're thinking we're playing in The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, I'm sorry, think more along the lines of stuff just before New Hope, and that's probably the easiest way to get you there. So let's do a quick round of reminders about the characters that we're playing. If you could, Rach, kick us off. Tell us just a brief bit about your character and the playbook that you chose for her.
Yeah, so I am playing Kyrie Fortinet, the Vigilant. The Vigilant is the playbook in Burned Over that takes ideas from the Wolves of the Maelstrom that come up in bog standard Apocalypse World. In this particular game, Kyrie is a young woman who, after the fall of the Jedi Order, discovered in the ruins of the Jedi archives a hollow book that made references to wolves in a maelstrom. So she's come to this planet to go hunt them, to seek them out, to figure out what their deal is.
Nice. Next up, we have Cody. Cody, please tell us about the character that you've chosen to play and the playbook that they are.
Yeah, I'm playing Bantha Bren, the Restless playbook. He's a rough, rugged, weather-beaten hunter, formerly a member of the Confederacy of Independent Systems, the losing side of the Clone Wars. Found his way to Tatooine and just kind of living off the grid, as it were. Just getting by with his Massive the dog.
That's right. So the Massive you may have seen in Book of Boba Fett. They are scaly lizard-like quadrupeds with these big black eyes and some weird scales going on. They look really interesting, and I think it's awesome that you've chosen that as your dog. What's the first impression that we get of this dog, the Massive, and what have you named the Massive?
Yes, the Massive is named Dog, and they're my right hand. The impression of the Massive is slobbery, goofy. He's a very helpful ally in the wastes of Tatooine, in the Jundland wastes, you might say.
Nice.
But he is, in fact, kind of a goober.
I love it. And last but certainly not least is Greg. Please tell us about your character and the playbook you chose for them.
I'm playing Druben. Druben is the Harrier playbook. If you're familiar with Apocalypse World, the Harrier replaces the Chopper. So I have a swoop gang under my control. My swoop gang is the Kyber Minox. They are a fearsome group. I have Ki. She's my fighter and also my sister. Gwaz is the scout for the gang. Gwaz is a Rhodian. Both Ki and Druben are Zabrags. And then Chochek is my lieutenant. He's a Deveronian. They're the aliens with the red skin and the big horns coming out the front. A bit like Hellboy.
Yes, quite a bit like Hellboy.
Quite a bit like Hellboy.
And the first time they were seen was in the cantina on New Hope.
Yep.
All right. Thank you all for introducing your characters. We are playing, as I said before, on Tatooine. I am stealing from the amazing Edge of the Empire supplement about Mos Shuta as the place that we're starting off at. In Apocalypse World Burned Over, there are hard zones, and in a hard zone, they're predefined setting starters, because in original Apocalypse World, you had no real support for, well, where we want to play, what kind of apocalypse do we want. Hard zones are a part of Burned Over. You choose a hard zone, it has an overall schema, which I think is very analogous to Star Wars in that there is a general, what was the apocalypse, what is the look, the feel, what is the vibe of that. And then there are at least 10 locations defined within that hard zone. We have a custom hard zone that we've created for this. We call it the Tatooine Deserts Hard Zone. And it has things that you might recognize all the way from Mos Espa and Mos Eisley to Anchorhead and Jabba's Palace. So, with that in mind, we're kicking off at Mos Shuta, but I'm not attached to it in any way. That is just a starter to say where you are, and if you pick up and move, that is A-okay with me. Now let me look around. Do we have any starting moves, things that are supposed to happen at the kickoff of our session?
Yes, Druben has one. It's called Whispers of the Grey Wing. Do you want me to read the move?
Yeah, read it real quick for us.
Sure. Whispers of the Grey Wing. At the beginning of the session, roll plus weird. On a 10+, ask the MC 2 questions. On a 7 to 9, ask 1. The MC has to answer frankly. There's also a one on a miss, but I'm not going to read all the questions. Here we go. Oh, by the way, weird is my worst stat, -1.
Nice.
And that would be a 5.
Congratulations, you have missed. You get to ask one anyway, and you get to ask a second question as well. Before you ask those questions and we move away from the move, let me inform you that you've just rolled with weird, which means you need to mark weird. So in our character keeper, which is our online character sheet, there are tick boxes, but that also exists on the paper version of Burned Over. When you get your 4th mark on weird, which means the 4th time you've rolled it, that converts to an XP. After 6 XP, you get to take an improvement or an advance. So, you get one question from the list and another question. Please ask your first question from the list.
I will actually ask the first question. Whose blood has been spilled and not yet cooled?
Nice, nice. Whose blood has been spilled and not yet cooled? We kick off with Druben and the Minox, the Kyber Minox, as the lot of you are on your swoops flying back towards Mos Shuta. And you pass by the corpse of a Nikto. Nikto by the name of Mordu Toggle. Mordu works for Timo the Hutt, who, for all intents and purposes, is the heart holder of Mos Shuta. And it looks like he was shot in the back, out in the desert, in the waste, far away from the shadows of Mos Shuta. You get a second question.
Yeah, this isn't good. I think Druben crouches down and... Oh, Mordu. You fool. And I'll ask the second question. Upon which of us has death fixed its eye?
You look up. You've hopped off your swoop to take a look at Mordu. Notice that the blaster holes are in its back, not its front. You look up. We have the two suns, the twin suns behind your crew. You see them in silhouette for a moment. And perhaps it's a trick of the light, but you see this odd aura around your lieutenant, the Deveronian Chochek. The aura makes it feel like a finger of some wicked god is pointing him out. What do?
Chochek. Hey, get a shovel.
What we need a shovel for, boss? You know, Massos will come round and eat him.
No. We'll bury him here. I can't bring him back. Someone will think we did it.
Your sister Naki says, "Come on, Cho. Many hands, light work." She slides off her bike, grabs a little spade, and the lot of you start to dig a grave for a Nikto you barely knew. We'll cut away from a Druben Ki. Kyrie, where in Mos Shuta are you currently staying? There's a Mos Shuta tab in the character keeper. There are barracks. There are lots of places where you could just kip up if you wanted to hide out without paying anyone for it. And then there are also some places that folks can actually stay. There is a spaceport control. There's a small Imperial presence here in Mos Shuta. But there's an uneasy peace between Timo and his forces and the small, not even a garrison, squad or so of Imperials around here.
Just reviewing Mos Shuta's map, I see something labeled the bunkhouse. Is that a place where I could possibly rent out a bed?
Well, of course it is. So you staying at the bunkhouse?
Yeah, the bunkhouse, down back behind the cantina on the edge of town.
Yeah.
Seems removed enough from whatever conflicts exist.
Sure, it's right by a cantina, right by the bathhouse. The bathhouse, of course, is not a place where you go to bathe in water. It's a communal building with a pool of diethyl ether peroxide for bathers to cleanse themselves in. Yeah, you don't want to drink from that. But the bunkhouse is a good enough place to kip. It is a one-bedroom place where if you weren't too choosy, you could probably cook up some food there. Did you pay extra to have a small holo projection unit to watch some holonet? Of course, all be approved by the Empire type stuff.
Oh, no, that's just an extra expense. You save that for burning at the cantina and then tipping your waitress at the beginning of the day so you get a good breakfast.
Good call. So do you cook food at that place or do you head over to the cantina?
Oh, I definitely head over to the cantina. You don't want to see the communal kitchen. I'm imagining it almost as like a hostel situation. Not hostile, but hostile.
I gotcha.
Although it could be hostile depending on who has access to what hot plate right now.
Drask's Cantina, run of course by Drask, a Deveronian. Maybe a Deveronian who happens to be related to Chochek. We'll find out soon enough. So you head out of the bunkhouse over to Drask's Cantina to grab a bite. Drask's Cantina is not the only place to eat here in Moshuta. It is the oldest place that serves food. Drask is off to the left as you walk in. You take a few steps to get into the cantina. There's a little bit of music playing in the background. It is piped in. There are no live performers at the small stage. You see there are a few servers who are moving around. Are you the kind of person that normally grabs a booth, or do you sit in the tables in the middle?
Oh, I sit at the bar. Front and center.
Sit at the bar.
Even though it's breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to get a feel for the vibe of this place this morning. And Kyrie shows up here most mornings, first thing, to see who's a new face around town, who might be drifting in here to do some trading. Just looking for anything that is out of place, because you never know when the wolves are going to show up.
Indeed. Now, one person might think, oh, well, is Kyrie trying to read a situation, which is an Apocalypse World move? I'm not sure that a move is triggered here, because this isn't a charged situation. So I'm just going to tell you that when you come in and sit at the bar, you're not 2 stools away from Vorn. Tell Alvis, who runs the junk shop, he comes in here to grab a bite before he goes to argue with his R5 droid. He's a crotchety old cuss. And you see that there's a Twi'lek here. Not the Twi'lek who works as a server, but one of the Sisters of the Whills. She seems troubled. You can tell that she's dealt with wolves of some kind. How can you see when someone is troubled or marked by the wolves of the Maelstrom?
You can tell somebody is marked by the wolves because there's a ripple on the edges of their shadow. Because the wolves are, of course, connected to shadows. They're shadows that don't stand on the ground and have empty holes for eyes. And it's really the shadows when the first manifestation of some influence of the wolves will show up in a common person.
Okay. So Sister Aria, it's obvious to you that she's recently dealt with one of the wolves. Now, she may not know that, but you know that.
Whereabouts is she sitting this morning?
She is seated at one of the little horseshoe type bench areas with a little table in the middle. If you're thinking of the Mos Eisley Cantina, not that dissimilar from the place where Han and Greedo had a small conversation, and Han shot first.
Yes. Kyrie's gonna stick out her hand and wave and see if she can get the sister's attention. Does she react?
She was staring at her little glass of blue milk, but your movement catches her attention, and she picks up the glass and she'll hustle quickly over to you. Does she know you, Kyrie, or do you just know of her?
Has she been around town a while?
She has. You've heard that she used to dance for Timo the Hutt before she left to join this small nunnery dedicated to the Whills.
I think we've met each other around town. We may have had a passing conversation in a store, in so much that anyone in Moshuta has light conversation with each other. Enough to know each other's first names, I guess.
Kyrie, good morning.
Now, Rich, based on my past experience with her, does she prefer being called Aria or Sister by her title?
She introduced herself to you as Sister Aria.
Sister, it doesn't look like you've slept at all last night. You just seemed a little bit forlorn over there in the corner.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I bother you, Kyrie?
Oh, no, not. You didn't bother me at all. I just felt like you were, needed somebody to sit with, even though we're a little bit front and center here. Do you prefer the booth?
If you don't mind, yes. I like just a tiny bit of privacy. But yes, please join me.
I'm going to, before she could reach for her glass, reach over and pick up her glass and carry it over. I'm trying to be as nice, lance a good impression on her right away. She's going to be my next lead.
She seems surprised that you take her glass of half-drunk blue milk, and she follows you over, sits across from you. Have you found anything recently, Kyrie? She says as she reaches her hand to take the blue milk back from you.
Some scraps that are worth a little bit of money, but nothing super exciting. But I woke up today having a good feeling that today was going to be a good day for hunting.
That's good. That's good. I will pray for you.
But something seems to be troubling you. Has anything unusual happened in the last couple of days?
You are very perceptive. I did not sleep well. I do not wish to trouble you, Kyrie. There has been a disturbance outside of our domicile.
What kind of disturbance? She leans in, very excited.
There is... The other sisters have said it's just the wind. But I have found myself troubled, and I feel as if we are being watched. I know you're probably going to laugh, Kyrie, but the last time I had this feeling was when I was young and on Rylov, before I was taken.
I don't think that's a silly feeling at all. And she lowers her voice to a whisper. We all live under the shadow of the Empire, right? We all know what it's like to be watched. Now, was it watched in that kind of way or another?
Oh. No, I can deal with a stormtrooper or two.
I was not doubting your combat skill, but sometimes the Empire employs more nefarious methods.
No, I don't think it was any member of the Empire. I feel like it was something else entirely. Do you know anything about those who opposed the... She looks around. The Jedi Order, known as the Sith?
This is an excellent lore question, Rich. In your mind, does a common person know a lot about the Sith?
In my mind, no. I do not think a common person knows about the Sith.
Kyrie is going to take a sip of her caf and shake her head.
I've been reading about them in our texts. They sound very dark and troubled. Perhaps it is only in my imaginings, but I have felt a dark presence near us, near the nunnery. I've been loath to leave my sisters in case there was some way that I could offer them assistance, but no one understands.
Well, I may have had some experience hunting down dark presences people have reported in other communities on this planet. Would you like me to go investigate this one? Just to reassure you, it's probably nothing, but just so nothing happens to the other sisters at the nunnery.
You are too kind, Kyrie. It seems that the Wills have sent me a protector after all. Please do not put yourself in any danger. But if you find out anything, it would put my mind at ease.
I'd be happy to have a look around, but I will need your help getting in. I'm not... Well, she gestures down at herself. She's wearing smuggler-esque clothes would be the best way to describe it. Definitely not a nun.
Little smuggler chic.
Yes. Definitely not the robes that you would expect a woman in a nunnery to wear. And say, I'll need a little bit of help getting in.
Oh, Kyrie, I would be so happy to help you.
Oh, there's no way this could possibly go wrong.
Yes. Star Wars nun habit makeover sequence coming.
Get thee to a nunnery.
Great. I think that's a great moment for us to pull away as Kyrie is leaving with Sister Aurea to head to Our Lady of the Whills. And in case folks are like, why is Rich talking about wheels? I'm not. I'm saying Whills, Whills. It was referenced in Rogue One. It's this religion that it's very Force-related, whole lot of stuff. You can look it up on the Wikipedia. Let's just go with religion in Star Wars, and I think that's good enough. By the way, Cody is my, ace in the hole Star Wars expert. If I ever have a question, I'm going to throw it to Cody because he's so smart. Speaking of Cody, so Bantha, Bren, we pick up with you on the run. Is Dog running ahead of you towards something or behind you as you're being chased?
Well, I think Dog is running behind me. He got himself into a bit of trouble, and he doesn't know when to turn tail quite as fast as old Bantha Bren.
So Dog is barking menacingly back at whatever is chasing you. You are out in one of the canyons. Let's take a look at our places and our locations, and let's pick it. I think that you're near the Gouge. The Gouge is ancient mines, and there are hard people who live there, venturing deeper when they can, venturing out when they must. And you are near the Gouge, and there is something chasing after you. Hear the rumble of, for a moment, it sounds almost like a quake of some kind, but you see that hard rock split for a moment as if something's moving just underneath the skin of the earth and breaking forth. What do you do, Bantha Bren?
Well, I keep running towards my tripwire spike I've had set up for just this occasion. On the hunt, you always lay a trap first, and it looks like I'm going to need to rely on my skills to get us out of this one.
Well, I think we should lead off with you trying something challenging, Bantha Bren. When you try something challenging, a physical action that might be beyond you, requiring strength, dexterity, endurance, balance, or quick reflexes, roll plus aggro.
Bantha Bren's aggro is -2.
Oh my.
He's a bit of an old man, so this is a hot roll. All right, a -2 brings this 6 down to a 4.
Okay, please mark aggro. There are no specific misconditions for a failed try something challenging. So I get to make a move. And I think what happens, Bantha Bren, is that you are running hard. You turn to look ahead towards the tripwire. And before you reach it, your left ankle gives out on you and twists. And you are going to take 1 harm from twisting your ankle. But it's a harm move that I'm calling for. And this isn't the thing where I think armor applies, right? Would you agree? Twisting your ankle, I don't think
no,
your
absolutely,
armor's going to affect that. Cool.
Armor's not going to stop that unless I'm wearing, slick braces. I sure ain't. Just a traditional leather duster.
Okay, so harm in Apocalypse World always works on a clock, so you've moved from 0 to 3 o'clock. But now you have to suffer. When you suffer harm, you do the harm move. You roll minus the harm you've suffered. You want to roll high in Burned Over. It's the opposite in original Apocalypse World in 2nd edition. I like that now you always want to roll high. It feels good to me to always have the same juju thoughts in your brain when you're rolling the dice. So you're going to roll 2d6 minus 1.
2d6 minus 1. Here we go. Hey, I got an 11, so a 10.
Oh, nice. Okay. On a 10 plus, the MC chooses 1. The harm you take stands as is with no additional effect. Or you take minus 1 harm, but I get to choose 1 from the list for the 7 to 9. I think the harm you take stands as is with no additional effect. You fall to the ground. It smarts, but you're not immobile. You just lost a wee bit of time, and you see that ground split some more, and it's almost like a shark fin. You see this jagged ridge come up through the surface, and Dog is right there. He's making this big stand to make sure that you are good to go on the tripwire. You've got a hard choice here. Do you want to go for that tripwire? Do you want to circle back and help out Dog? What do you do?
Yeah, Bantha Bren, he hits the Tatooine sand and rolls to the side to get out of the path with this beast that's hunting us. And I think in the roll, he raises his bowcaster.
Nice.
Oh, it kicks like a bantha, but he's ready to fire at the shape.
All right.
Dog, he can't let Dog get stuck into this.
Damn straight he can't. All right. So you are going to attack someone. There are a few different combat maneuvers in Burned Over. There's doing battle, which is where the two of you would swap harm. And there's act under fire, which can cover larger scale stuff with bigger groups. But what you're doing is you're attacking someone. Right now, this thing couldn't attack you back. When you attack someone, you roll plus hard. On any hit, you inflict harm as established. Your bowcaster is a 3 harm weapon, so that's going to take a bite.
All right, and I have a +1 to my hard. And I'm going to need it because I rolled a 6, so I get a 7.
Woo! Squeak on by. On a 7 to 9, you get to choose one of the options. Inflict terrible harm, which means you inflict +1 harm. Seize hold of something, name it, you have definite hold of it. Get them out of your way, impress, frighten, or dismay them, or pin them down.
Yeah, I think with the bowcaster, it has such a kick. I think it dismays them. I think the creature that's chasing us didn't expect this kick when it was hoping to just get a snack from a miner.
Nice. So we hear that bowcaster, and it hits the thing, and you hear this burbling sound of pain from it, and the thing does not rise up out of its little subterranean tunnel or wherever it was underneath Dog. It does not take a bite out of your massive. And yeah, Dog keeps barking. Maybe he thinks he did this. He's a little goofy. So you've bought yourself a moment here. You've hurt that thing. What do you want to do now?
Well, now I need to get Dog under control and head to high ground or head to a more durable surface. So, Dog, get over, Dog.
Bro.
Enough. You're enough. You're gonna get us. Go on. Get on.
And then it finally hears you, and Dog responds, and he starts to scamper off. I think you want to get to higher ground here, and you're trying to save Dog as well. I'm going to have you act under fire here.
All right, my cool is 1. Even with my 1, I got a 5.
Oh my. All right. On a miss, be prepared for the worst. So I'll give you a choice. Is it Dog that this creature attacks? Or Bantha Bren, do you shove the Dog out of the way and do you get attacked?
Bantha Bren his ankle is still so hurt. Dog gets up without a hitch. There's no problem there. It's Bantha Bren shuffling to get after the Dog, get after Dog as he pushes him up to safety. Bantha Bren's gonna get got.
All right, so you shove your massive up onto the little shelf, the ledge that this thing can't, this graboid, whatever the hell it is, and we hear a sickening crunch as this thing takes a hard bite out of you, Bantha Bren, and it hurts. And we're going to cut away from you. I'd like to see a scene where we have 2 PCs meet up, and I think since Bantha Bren is busy getting bit, it's going to have to be Druben Ki and Kyrie Fortnite. Why don't Druben Ki, when you and the rest of the Minox are coming into Moshuta, run into Kyrie as a sister?
I was going to say, we're friends. I'm going to be in my nun's habit. There's going to be an awful lot of questions, I think.
Yeah, I think Druben, we're rolling in. We're not really welcome in Mos Eisley anymore, due to the incident that we will surely fill out information on later, right?
Yes.
We swoop in pretty openly here in Moshuta. And we've got our pikes up on our bikes, and we're just making our way through the crowd, kind of idling through. And I catch Kyrie in this habit. And the rest of the gang is continuing towards the cantina, because that's, of course, what we're going to do. And Druben sort of pulls off and stops, cutting off Kyrie's very obvious path. Sister.
Nice seeing you out today, Druben.
Same to you, Sister Kyrie.
I imagine the habit flutters in the wind as you stop in front of her. Very dramatically revealing to the audience that she is not wearing her normal clothes.
And Druben, whatever you do to a swoop bike to turn it off, I don't think there's a key.
Smack it.
Yeah, it settles down onto the sand. He dismounts off. He's looking between you and... is Arya with you?
I would imagine we must be walking back to the convent at this point.
Yeah.
Kyrie, you never struck me for the religious type.
I decided to make a change in my life. It's not what you would expect, though. Apparently, there's been something in the shadows unsettling the sisters, and I'm going in to investigate. And then she looks over at the sister and looks over at Druben and kind of leans in and says, "Do you think you got a habit his size?"
No. Sadly, I don't think anything would fit Druben.
What troubles you, sister?
She seems a little hesitant out here in the open, in front of passersby and your gang. She says,
"Right,
it's nothing to concern yourself, Druben. But thank you."
Kyrie, there's no artifacts in that abbey there.
Sometimes it's not necessarily artifacts you need to pursue. It's the more intangible things. Perhaps a presence of an artifact that might be influencing the town. Unless you know of something passing through.
Well, something certainly passed through Mordu. Just buried him out in the sands.
How close is Mordu to Mashuda? Is he a presence that everyone would know?
You said he was essentially the sheriff, right?
He was now.
I thought you said he was
dead.
He was like Timo's enforcer, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, Kyrie's eyes go wide and she says, "Wait, so how long's he been dead?"
It looked recent.
As in this morning? Or, I guess if the body's been out in the sand. Not eaten?
Well, his blood was still warm.
Any weird footprints or claw marks in the sand around it? She says, kind of gesturing.
You've been spending too much time around that Bantha Bren, Kyrie. There was no weird footprints, just sand.
Well, it's not like he has any shortage of friends around here.
Sister Aurea leans over. Kyrie, do you think that those two, that what I've sensed and what happened to Mordu, you think they're related?
They could be, she says, whispering back.
Now, Druben, you could totally hear this. She's not estimated the hearing abilities of a Zabrak.
They could be related. It's going to be hard to tell if the presence is really settled in or if it's, again, passing through like the wind. And if it's like the wind, then it could get out in the middle of the desert in no time, right?
Could, I guess. Your sister comes up, Druben, slaps you on the shoulder. Save you a spot in Drask's, or you gonna go off with the sisters?
I'll come to Drask's.
Good.
Kyrie, this is, it's a little bit different for you.
Well, why don't I go meet up with you after and fill you in on how it goes? Secret initiation rites. That kind of information goes for good on the black market, right? She winks at you.
Oh, whatever you say.
Naki chuckles at this. Says, that is not an outfit I expected to see on her, Drube.
Oh, Nock. You're just sad because you wouldn't pull it off like Kyrie does.
Yeah. Come on. She's trying to pull you away, or she's going on in without you, Druben.
I'll go into the cantina.
Cool. We'll follow you for just a moment longer. As Chochek comes over, Drube, you want me to go tell Timo?
I want to go to Timo with who actually killed him. I don't want to just be the bearer of bad news. Yeah, keep your ear to the ground. Keep your horns sharp.
All right. The camera of our game points out that one of his two horns is broken, and he chuckles a nasty laugh at that.
I think Druben will go over to Drask, throws a couple credits down, gets a blue milk, I suppose. It's Tatooine, right? It's blue milk.
It's true, unless you want something alcoholic.
No, I think blue milk will do.
Okay. They do serve Jawa juice here.
Jawa juice?
Yeah, Ardis. Also known as Jawa juice, a beverage originating on Tatooine, is made of bantha hides mashed in fermented grains. Sounds delicious.
Definite pass. It's the blue milk for sure. That's all Drask has got is blue milk and that. It's blue milk all the way.
Ardis on tap at Drask's.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick kind of scan of the bar here and see if there's anybody who seems a little out of place.
Ooh, interesting. Why don't you... I'm going to push for an interesting move here. Because it feels to me that you're perhaps looking for something, opening your brain to the world. Because this isn't a charged situation. So if you want some information, maybe you're opening your brain. How do you feel about that?
I'm good with that. I'm also terrible at that. So I'm
awesome.
I'm super game.
When you open your brain to the world's psychic maelstrom, roll plus weird.
All right. If this goes really badly, I'm blaming the blue milk. That is a... Oh, dang it, that's a 6.
Is it now?
Yes, it is.
On a miss, be prepared for the worst. So, first, don't forget to mark weird.
Already done.
Excellent. You might as well get something out of it. You look around, and you happen to see that there is someone from Mos Eisley. Someone you didn't expect to see again for a very long time. And you have a feeling they're here for you. What did you do to them? Did you take something of theirs? Did you kill someone important to them? Or did you just break your word?
Oh, I don't think Druben would ever break his word. I think it's, I killed someone close to them. Maybe not emotionally, but maybe more as a business associate.
All right. It's Garin Keeg Aduros from Mos Eisley. Not someone you would want to make angry. Garin Keeg, he's leaned against the bar. He's got one hand resting on the hilt of his heavy blaster pistol. And he was just waiting for you to walk in. I heard you ended up here. Druben Ki.
Garin. Kark. I thought Jabba would have had you killed by now.
Well, you thought wrong, Druben Ki. Now, you got two choices. We step outside and we settle our differences. Will you give me one of your rides? I figure that'll go enough to make me whole.
Can I finish my milk first?
You think I care about your comforts?
I was just giving you a chance to finish yours before I killed you.
I'll be waiting for you outside. Druben Ki.
All right. I'll be out in a minute.
Your sister comes up. Hey, I got this.
No, Knock. This is from before you. This is an old one. This one's on me.
Come on, Drew. I'm a lot faster than you.
Yeah. Well, tell you what. If I can't take care of him on the first round, feel free to join in. I could have given him your bike.
Okay, then you're making the right choice. And so, Druben Ki, you, blue milk still in hand, head out into the light of the twin suns, and we see that silhouette of the very angry Duros, who chased you all the way from Mos Eisley. And in a very Star Wars fashion, you're going to have an old-style gunfight, a blaster fight. And I think that we will take a pause here and bring the session to a close. So there are some things to do in our end of session moves, and unfortunately, because it was first session, I feel bad, Bantha Bren. I'll tell you ahead of time. You're just going to have to pick some things at your will. So at the end of the session, choose a character who knows you better than they used to. Tell that player to add +1 to their HX with you on their sheet. And if more than one character knows you better, choose at most 2. And then if nobody knows you better, then you choose somebody who doesn't know you as well as they thought, or any character that you want, and they get -1 HX with you on your sheet. And because, we'll start with you, Bantha Bren, you did not get to interact with other player characters, and I do apologize for that.
Oh, that's all right. Bantha Bren's massive shadow was felt everywhere across the Tatooine Desert Sands, as we know. And for that, I'm going to give Druben Ki +1 history. He knows what Bantha Bren gets up to when he calls it out that Kyrie's spending too much time around him. I think that shows their relationship.
For
I like it. Nicely done.
Nice. So then that player will add +1 HX with your character with Bantha Bren on their character sheet. So we'll hop over to Druben Ki. Who knows you better?
I think Kyrie knows me better. Maybe not at this immediate moment, but she's about to witness this duel.
She certainly is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Everyone's going to see it, I think.
Yeah.
And then Kyrie, who knows you better?
Definitely Druben. This might be the most ridiculous getup that Druben's seen Kyrie in for investigating, but it's not the first weird getup.
Oh my. Note to self, other getups we've seen Kyrie in flashbacks.
It will go through, it'll be a bunch of flashbacks like a sitcom, but I think this is a new one. It's like, oh, well, just how low will she go in terms of researching these wolves?
Indeed. All right, we'll stick with you to ask 2 more questions, Kyrie. The first one is, judge for yourself. Are you satisfied with your place in the galaxy?
I don't think she quite is. I mean, that's tricky.
Well, it's a yes or no. And
I
you're
know
trying to
it's a
find
yes
out
or
about
no.
the wolves or the maelstrom, and you haven't found out about it, so I don't know. Are you satisfied?
Yeah, I don't think she is happy. I had to think about this one a little bit. I don't think she is quite happy in where she is right now. She's on the right track, but she knows she hasn't reached her destination yet.
All right, then you're not. You get 1 XP. And then judge for yourself. Does your scavenge choice still hold true? We didn't talk about that on audio. You chose for the scavenge choice that she provides valuable services, warnings, and insights to the people around you. Does that still feel like it holds true for you?
Well, I reached out to the sister in order to lend her my services, so I think that holds true.
All right, you get a 2nd XP. And now we will head over to Druben Ki. Are you satisfied with your place in the galaxy?
I think Druben Ki is actually pretty okay with...
Really?
I don't know. Well, no, because what's his name just got shot? Mordu.
Yeah.
That's gonna mess things up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's this guy wants to kill me.
He does.
I'm pretty sure he's wanted to kill me before.
It's true.
So,
I mean, maybe it's not even that bad because you're not dead yet. Go ahead and take an XP, and then does your scavenge choice still hold true? And you had chosen for your scavenge, you and your birds are willing to sell yourselves as bodyguards, skirmishers, armed couriers, and or mercenaries. Does that still feel true?
Yeah, I was kind of trying to get Sister Arya to contract the birds there for a little bit, right? I was, if you're not feeling safe, I'm right here. But yeah, she didn't take me up on it.
She didn't. Maybe I should have had you sway her to that. Maybe I would have should have had you sway her to that.
I could have pressed harder.
That note. All right, well, then your scavenge still holds true. Go ahead and mark an XP. And finally, Bantha Bren, are you satisfied with your place in the galaxy?
Sure ain't. Getting tore up by unknown beasts in the sands. I hate that. Oh man, my butt's getting chewed on.
It's true.
No good.
Buttless Bantha Brent is what we may have in our next session, but probably not. Then take an XP, and then does your scavenge choice, which is, where the inhospitable keeps its treasures of fruit, meat, fur, and other resources, and you'll take what you want for yourself and your friends. Does that still feel true?
Yeah, that still stands true, yeah.
All right, go ahead and mark an XP, and that will bring our play to a close. Thank you all for our first full session of Star Wars Apocalypse World.
You can now get Hearts of Wulin Worlds on Drive-Thru RPG. This supplement for Hearts of Wulin includes alternate settings and new mechanics. In it you'll find Shadow of the Joseon, a historical Korean setting, 1905 San Francisco, Chinatown in the shadow of the Chinese Exclusion Act, Corps de la Épée, a fantastic swashbuckling France, Academy of the Blade, an anime-inspired dueling school, Fight Me IRL, a cyberpunk corporatized future, and Silk and Steam, a silk-punk fantasy setting. As well, Hearts of Wulin Worlds contains a new core playbook, detailed options for running wuxia mysteries, and more. You can get the PDF, as well as the core Hearts of Wulin book, at our drive-thru publisher site, bit.ly/gauntlet-publishing.
Welcome to the post-game discussion for our Star Wars Apocalypse World Burned Over miniseries, where RMC will enlighten us a bit about the strategy that he had going into the game and see how our players reacted to that strategy, or perhaps how they derailed everything.
So with Apocalypse World and most PBTA, I don't have a gigantic plan. I often will have bangs, which I'm stealing from terminology from Sorcerer, which is not a PBTA game, but came out a little bit before Apocalypse World, where you throw someone into a situation, you don't know the answer to that situation, you just think it's interesting and might evoke cool moments. So I did have a plan here in that there are generally, when I run Apocalypse World, there are a couple different ways that I will kick off that first session. One of them I did with Rach's character, and the other one I did with Cody's character. So for Kyrie, Rach's PC, I chose to follow your PC around for a while, asking questions about your daily life, learning about characters that are important to her and what she might do on a normal day. This approach relies on either having a fully fleshed out PC or the player thinking on their feet, because you're world building as you're playing. It does delay inciting action and plot, as we would think in a more traditional RPG. So the pace is slower and sometimes a little more slice of life. Like we had Kyrie sit down for a glass of blue milk with someone, come into a situation that wasn't charged. Like I openly declared, this is not a charged situation. So, Rach, was there anything you discovered about your character that surprised you from this?
how integrated she is in the community. There was a few times where you were asking me how well I knew certain NPCs, and it really became apparent to me quite quickly that she's been here for a while. She's social. She's not a Indiana Jones type staying off in the bunks and only going out exploring for artifacts. No, she could like randomly go and shoot the shit with anyone at the bar. You name drop saying, oh, here's this, the guy who's basically the sheriff, he's dead. And the importance of that would become very apparent to her quickly.
Was there anything about that approach that felt weird or odd to you?
I have two minds about it. The first one is, no, it doesn't feel odd, but this is a very common strategy with Powered by the Apocalypse games to get them up and running, is to figure out the character's status quo and then disrupting it.
Mm-hmm.
The other school of thought that I had about it is my dice, I don't believe, really hit the table at all.
That's true. That's a really good point.
And if I came to a Powered by the Apocalypse game feeling, oh, I should be rolling dice in order to make things happen, that may have caught me off guard. With my experience, it doesn't, but I think someone more accustomed to different styles of play would find that peculiar.
It's really good. I want to throw this question out to Greg and Cody first. You guys suss out who feels hot to answer it first. What kinds of players or people benefit from that follow you around slice of life approach for Apocalypse World in your experience?
Not to ruin the premise of the question. I think to some degree it also, at least when it comes to Powered by the Apocalypse games, it does depend a bit on the playbook. I think certain playbooks benefit. For example, in Apocalypse World, like a hard holder, right? We're very interested in that playbook, kind of seeing what their slice of life moment is like. And where someone who has picked the gun lugger, I'm using the Apocalypse World playbooks because I have them in my head. I don't have all of the slightly different names for Burned Over. But okay. Somebody who's picked the gun lugger is flagging to the MC, I want a big brawling fight. That's the play I'm interested in. And someone who has picked the water bearer is saying, I'm interested in having a spot and exploring people coming in and out of it and what that's like in the world.
Nice. Cody, what are your thoughts? What kind of players or people might benefit from this slice of life approach?
Yeah, I haven't had the most experience with not just Apocalypse World, but a lot of PBTA games. I've only played a handful and then a lot of Star Wars hacks with you, Rich. But so, a lot of similar players in those playing pools. But I think this kind of playstyle would benefit players who are unfamiliar with the rules. It's more for kind of finding your footing in fiction first before you start having to grok the different rules. I also think, personally, I think it's a kind of a nice on-ramp if a player either has a really fully fleshed out character that they already have ready to go, or has a character that they're really tied to, because I think they get to kind of like almost start their journey, as it were. Like they get a full arc potentially because they're starting with before the call to adventure. And I think for players who are really close to the character that they've made, I think it's a great way to start. But the point Greg made about playbooks signaling what kind of playstyle they're interested in is a really good one that I didn't even consider.
Yeah, I think that is a very apt description. Rach, what are your thoughts along those lines? And also, if you want to tease into if there's anyone you think is a bad fit for a slice of life, very open world approach to first session.
Ooh, good question. I feel that in players that are good fits, especially players who might be coming from a role-playing background but not necessarily a tabletop role-playing background, are a good fit for this. So going for your free-form RPers online, currently working on a game involving a bunch of those, or people from more of the LARP community who might want to feel out the space first before looking at the mechanics. And a bad fit for this type of approach might be someone at a convention game who wants to experience as much of the game and how it works to make a judgment call and say, I've heard about this apocalypse world burned over being talked about in podcasts. Here's my opportunity at Gen Con to go play it. And then this is 2 hours in this slot of you wandering around bars, and maybe you'll get a mission, but that might not be what they want to get out of that, very limited playtime.
Nice. Cool. Thank you. Cody, Greg, do either of you have any further thoughts around bad fits or any other things to throw in?
I would suggest, when it comes to a potential bad fit, I think it can, and it's not essentially a bad fit as much as I think a player would experience discomfort with it, is players who don't want to role play, they want to, roll dice, right? Those kind of players, they're not interested in exploring those things. And not just because they're at a convention setting or whatever it might be. Sometimes people are like, I'm here to do X. Usually those folks aren't playing PBTA games, but that can bring what they're hoping for, slow it way down, and then they might struggle to get into the character. They might struggle to find what an everyday thing is for them because they're here for adventure. I could see that being a slow starter for them, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, wow. I'm having flashbacks to conversations of role play versus role play.
Oh, dear.
I didn't mean to bring back flashbacks. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I think it's an interesting discussion. I haven't had entertained that in a while.
Yeah.
I just agree that a convention play is certainly, it's something where as a player, you're wanting to get into the meat of the game. And there are games where it is slice of life, and that's the whole point of the game. If we were doing Apocalypse Burned Over and this was the only session we were playing, then it might feel like, I need to, stir some trouble and deal with the scarcity.
Yeah, especially in a model where if you had to pay for that slot, I would see that as being a pain point.
Yeah.
I love the concept of deal with the scarcity.
Yes.
From an MC perspective, the follow somebody around is something that is an easy fallback if you don't have any ideas. It's a thing that you can just do because you can ask questions and get curious about something. And then just if you see that they are getting antsy as the MC, you see, oh, well, they're trying to engage a move. They're trying to go and push on things. You can snap right into something more action-oriented.
What you just said spurred something in my mind. I think a bad fit, I think it's so much as it's a player who's not used to this style of play, but a player who's not used to driving the complications onto their own character.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a style of play that we do a lot in the Gauntlet, where you're actively seeking out and putting your character in danger and making your life more complicated. If you come from a play culture where that is something that is the onus of the MC or the game master to complicate your life, instead of going out there and actively seeking danger, and just not knowing that that's something you can do in something like a Powered by the Apocalypse game. You can actively be like, oh yeah, I've got this. We talked about this person that hates me. I'm going to go find them and tell them just how wrong they are. That kind of thing.
There are some players who play defensively. Like that's the culture that they came from. The GM might be out to get them, or they play defensively because they're really not about exploring the emotion of their characters. They want to explore the world, and the apocalypse world is what interested them, not delving into their day-to-day life. I think that's real good. On the flip side to the Rach approach is the thing I did to you, Cody, with Bantha Bren. I threw you immediately into a hot situation and forced you to react. During that opening scene, some information was declared like right at the outset. Situations declared rather than built collaboratively. I was telling you what was going on and pushing you in to engaging the system quickly and making higher stakes decisions on the fly. So Cody, what did you discover about Bantha Brent that surprised you?
I suspected before playing that he would be best friends with Dog. even though the character sheet, the playbook, gives you a lot of options to have more dogs, it almost felt like maybe there's something that, it's Apocalypse World, they're gonna get got. But Bantha Bren isn't about that life. He's an old man and he loves dog. And so I think it was that. It was that kind of like, oh, okay, he's gonna do that to save dog. But also, I haven't played this playbook, haven't really played Burned Over before. Seeing my -2 in aggro and how that plays into doing anything challenging, it's tough, right? So I kind of found the value of certain mechanics and certain stats and stuff like that. And so in that scene, all of a sudden I realized, oh, you know what? Bantha Bren is actually kind of a feeble old man. He's not as robust as he might have been. He's, dangerous, but only on his terms. If he has to struggle, it's going to be bad for him.
Yeah, that was really interesting that Bantha Bren was really on his heels. That was a lot scarier than I anticipated. Was there anything that felt weird or odd about this approach?
On its own, no. I wouldn't say there's anything odd. I enjoy that kind of like immediate push to get the action going, because invariably the dice roll hot or they roll cold, and then even more stuff starts falling out from it. I would say that when you deploy this, or when you deploy any of these second after another one, you're kind of, any player who's waiting for their intro starts seeing ins that they might come in at, like, this might be where I get introduced, this might be where I get introduced. And so when it becomes, actually, we're jumping from a slice of life scene to this, you're in danger, what are you going to do? I could see some players bristling at that, because they might be constantly building up like, oh, okay, I'll start out with this person, or I'll be over there, I'll start, if they start engaging too quickly with the narrative in their own head before the table gets to them. Oh,
that's a really interesting point.
Then, their point of view could be like, I was hoping to be at the Our Lady of the Wills. That's where I wanted to be, was in the place with the nuns. But I think that would be the case for either of these, whichever one happens second. It's just this kind of thing. But for me personally, I like to play games where I get into trouble. I like to play games where bad things happen to my characters and I have to live with that and deal with these consequences. So jumping right into the action like that is fun. And you, Rich, you said you established the scene pretty hard without collaboration, but there's ways, in those scenes that the player can put their own spin on it, right? Like, oh, okay, I'm being chased by something. Well, it's because it's the dog got into something he shouldn't have. And then, well, actually, I'm going to lead him towards a trap because I'm clearly hunting. So, there are clever ways around it to kind of expand it if you want that. Otherwise, you could be happy to just be like, yeah, I'm getting chased. Who knows what it is? I'll wait for the MC to tell me.
Oh, I've really loved that you threw in Bantha Bren had a plan. Like, that was a cool bit of flashback, and I thought it was really smart and great play, Cody. Rach, let me ask you, what kind of players benefit most from the throw something right in your face at the outset and make you react approach?
This might be my history in terms of running convention games and running one-shots at game nights, but during that really quick character gen, there's always, almost in every group, someone who you kind of get a whiff that they are going to be the person best suited for this. I don't want to make a stereotype. It's the person who is really obsessed with their gear. Like, you want to give them an opportunity to turn that gear on something. Like, when they start asking you combat-asked questions about, hey, how do I shoot something in this game? How does combat work? That's your red flag of, this person has to be immediately thrown into something, and that is how they're going to connect back to their character, and they're going to engage with the game better for the rest of the evening. Otherwise, you're going to bore them.
Really astute observation. Come from many hours at conventions. Rach is our con expert.
In the before times.
Yeah, back when people breathed the same air. Greg, what are your thoughts about what kind of players benefit or will be engaged by and not scared away from? We're in the stuff. You're right in the middle of it.
Yeah, I think kind of counterintuitively, when it comes to PBTA games and doing this in a PBTA game, I keep saying that this is a PBTA podcast. But
good point.
Yeah. I think in some ways, you if you have a table where you have a player or two that and you have a player or two that you may have less experience, or you may just not know how they play in a PBTA game, you might throw this at your experienced player almost as an example of play. If it's another player that you know, you can quickly throw them in. You can get dice on the table. You can very quickly explain this is the kind of thing. And even as you're explaining the rules to a player who you know already knows them, a good player will just key in on that. Be like, yep, no, absolutely. This is the teachable moment. And I just lost my ankle. I think that's a good way to approach that is, you know, if you have an experienced player who you know, and you have people you're just not sure of how they're going to work with the PBTA game, you can kind of use the hard framing as an example.
That's nice. I like that. Who would you not drop into a hard, moves-oriented action situation right off the top?
Anybody who is very, very interested in the safety of their character.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing how badly it can go so quickly, and then the potential of like, oh, I'm just going to lose a character without ever actually getting to the cool thing that in my head I thought of for them. I feel like that could really turn some people off. I have plenty of players in my games who are, you know, not necessarily too connected to their characters. They're just, they hold on tight. And if you were to throw them into this, they might deem that as unfair. That, oh, I wouldn't get into this bad situation. I wouldn't have chosen to get out here. You know, there's that kind of combativeness sometimes in games. And I could see kind of hard framing this as like, you're in a bad situation. It's like, well, why would I be? I would never choose these things, you know?
Yeah.
That kind of player would really bristle at this.
I've been at those tables. I hear you.
Oh, yeah. That's when you turn around and say, well, whose fault was it to the other players?
Oh, my. Rach, do you have any thoughts around people that you probably would not put in the situation right off the bat?
I think Cody hit the nail on the head.
Mm-hmm.
There are always people who are a little bit too precious about their characters, and that's fine. But once you get that defensive reaction, it may be hard to get them to open up again.
Greg?
Yeah, I would just add, if somebody in character gen seems to have a bit of the old analysis paralysis, and hey, I've had some myself on certain games, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
If they're very carefully considering every one of their actions, then throwing them immediately into the head thing, maybe that's exactly what the player wants, but I would say that maybe taking the slice of life and easing them into the game might be the better approach for them than hard framing something at the start.
Yeah. This is really interesting, you guys talking about that, perceiving the table, seeing how people engage during character creation as cues to what might be a good opening scene for them. I'm learning from you, and I'm the one who just did this stuff, so thank you. And there's one thing, Cody, that you brought up that I wanted to highlight, mostly for people playing Apocalypse World Burned Over, because I didn't realize this until Alan Reese in a recent series. This is one of the coolest games I've seen for your character to die in, because when life becomes untenable for your character, you've got 4 shots. 3 of them, your character comes back, and you get to choose it. Return to play with an adjustment to a stat, return to play with adjustment to a different stat, return to play with a new playbook. Definitely not a thing you want to do in opening sequence because people chose a playbook for a reason, but is something that I learned from watching Alan go through 2 playbooks in a 4-session series, and how fascinating it was to see how that affected play. I definitely learned something from him on that, and I thought that was really, really cool. Yeah, I don't go out of my way to kill characters, but if there's a player who's like, I am not afraid of death because I've got this safety net, it can be really fun.
And you can choose those 4 options. So
Absolutely,
if somebody's happy to have their character die,
Doom.
they can click that box and move on to the next one.
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
I love that because I like Bantha Bren, but as it was happening, I was like, oh, I guess this guy might not make it out of the prologue. And I kind of got this idea. I'm like, maybe that's just how this game goes. And I didn't notice that there was those 4, safety options, release valves of like, okay, that went bad for you, but try again. That went bad, try again. But it is nice to have that built into a game that can be so brutal.
All right. Well, those were my prepared conversation starters. Do you guys have any last thoughts from our first session that you want to get out there? Reflections you have from play or anything along those lines?
I didn't expect to be investigating a nunnery in a Star Wars game.
I mean, I kicked out the Bloodhound as a playbook specifically to avoid this. What is going on? That's right, Rach. I had to say, get thee to a nunnery, even though I just said
I know,
it right now.
it was pretty funny.
I love that you jumped feet first into the idea of dressing in a habit. That was just so...
It was the only right answer.
It was. It was so good. It felt very Star Wars-y.
Yeah, I very much enjoyed the opening cinematic of who is marked for death, and I look back at my 3 gang members, and in my mind, my sister and the Rhodian are perfectly silhouetted by the sun, and the Deverodian's in the middle and dark.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is not good.
It's a very striking visual.
Yeah, that was
Very
very
cinematic.
well done, Rich.
Thank you. Thank you. I was talking during our break after game before we started recording that when we had this question that you put out on the table of upon which of us has death fixed its eye, and then we get to the end where you failed and I've introduced this guy who's got a mean on for you, I was strongly considering how do I get Chochek to go step in for Druben Ki and do the gunfight with Garen Ki because he's the lieutenant and he thinks it's his responsibility. I really had that as a very strong impulse to try to make that happen. But it was first session. I didn't want to take Druben Ki's authority away. I didn't want to backseat you for this prophecy. So it's still, Chekhov's gun is still in play.
Oh yeah, very much so.
Speaking of that move and the cinematic opener with Druben Ki and then moving back into Moshuda with Kyrie, I really love about PBTA games in general, the good ones always have these moves that start stuff immediately. The game, it's propulsive by the mechanics before any of the players have to say a word. And there's something about that makes the first session of anything, in my experience, have such momentum going immediately that it's just oh man, everything's firing on all these cylinders because these questions are evocative. They get such a hot start of somebody's just been killed, someone in the crew is marked, things are already happening, and it's bad. And it's not just we all meet in a tavern and we just wait for Rich to give us our first quest from the local mayor. It is immediately things are happening in all sorts of different ways before Rich even gets a chance to say okay, am I going to do the hard route or the slice of life route? Already somebody's playbook is saying, actually, before you even get any ideas, this character is going to cause problems. And I love that.
Me too. Well, friends and listeners, thank you all for giving us your ears and participation in this first opening session of our mini-series of Apocalypse World Burned Over, set in Star Wars. Cody, thank you so much for playing with us.
Happy to be here.
Thank you very much, Greg.
So happy to be here.
And thank you, as always, my co-MC, Rach.
My status has been returned. Thank you for running the game for us today, Rich.
Cool. We're looking forward to a couple more sessions of this. So, hey, if you've got feedback for us, because it's a new thing we're trying and you're listening and you have thoughts, share them with us. Feel free. Put comments on the page, or you can reach out to Rach or I. Rach is Tedog on Twitter, and I am ORKLORD on Twitter. All right, we will bring things to a close here. Thank you all.
Plus One Forward is a production of the Gauntlet community, Richard Rogers and Rach Shelkey. You can find us at gauntlet-rpg.com or follow us on Twitter at +1FWD. If you would like to support our show, visit our Patreon site at patreon.com/gauntlet. The games mentioned on this show use the Apocalypse engine, which is a creation of Vincent and Magay Baker. The music for Plus One Forward is from the Savage Aural Hotbed CD Gomi Daiko. The songs used are Gomi Daiko, Metal Version, and Drowning Attitude. You can find more amazing tunes by Savage Aural Hotbed on their website, www.savageauralhotbed.com.